Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here. I'm Robert Mojica. I'm the Budget Director for the state of New York. And I'm also with the hundreds of CUNY students and SUNY students that we have volunteering. I would be remiss to say if I wasn't also a CUNY graduate and a very proud trustee of the university. As a Puerto Rican New Yorker, it's been truly inspiring to watch the governor and the response from New Yorkers from across the state to the disaster in Puerto Rico. While the federal government has largely ignored the island in the wake of Hurricane Irma and Hurricane Maria, Governor Cuomo has been a tireless champion for the people of Puerto Rico, and we're very proud. The governor was on the first plane to the island, and he was committed on day one to the island's recovery efforts, and now 10 months later, he is still committed to the island, and we will, while others seem to forget. Today, we are here with Governor Cuomo's delegation to continue New York's efforts and to support the New York Stands with Puerto Rico Recovery and Rebuilding Initiative. Over the next 2 days, we will be traveling across the island to visit sites both in San Juan, in the metro area, and the northern and central regions of the island, to communities that were the hardest hit by the storm. The teams will be deployed to Playita in Santurce, Guaynabo, Toa Baja, Barranquitas, and also Orocovis. The trip, for me, is the governor's idea of a vacation, so I personally will try to escape to visit my 86-year-old grandmother in Barrio Esperanza in Arecibo. Under the governor's leadership, we know that he's committed to the island and he's going to be here for the long haul. We are all very much looking forward to the next couple of days. I want to thank each and every one of our volunteer partners and members of the delegation, because without their support, none of this could really happen. You've all expressed your commitment to the people of Puerto Rico. So with that, I'd like to go around the table and ask everyone to introduce yourselves, what you're doing on the island, and then we'll hear from Governor Cuomo and other members of the delegation. So with that, if we can pass it to
Letitia James, New York City Public Advocate.
Ken Rasky, President of the Greater New York Hospital Association.
Hi, David Campbell, founder and chairman of All Hands and Hearts.
Edison Zavala, UNICEF USA.
Gil Quinones, President and CEO of the New York Power Authority.
David Kaplan, Executive Director of Nahama Jewish Response to Disaster.
Santos Rodriguez with the New York City Building Trades on behalf of Gary LaBarbera, President.
David Gomez, President of Henry Maria de Hostos Community College of the City University of New York.
Felix Mato Rodriguez, Presidente, Queens College, City University of New York.
Bill Keegan, Founder, President, Heart 9/11.
Mónica Martinez Raga, CUNY Service Corps.
Dennis Rivera from New York and Culebra.
Senador Gustavo Riveras, del distrito número 33 en el Bronx, nacido en Santurce, creado en Bayamón, papazón de Comerío.
Avidan Rodriguez, Presidente, University at Albany, State University of New York.
Melissa DeRosa, Secretary to Governor Cuomo.
George Gresham, President, 1199 SCIU.
And I'd also like to acknowledge some others of our partners, Monica Tavares from the Hispanic Federation, Christopher Smith from the Healthcare Association of New York, Anthony Chiampa of the New York State Nurses Association, Nelson Rivera, the Vice President of TW 100, Adrian Merced, Trustee of Teamsters Joint Council 16, and Teresa Santiago, Chairperson of Comité Noviembre. So with that, I'd like to pass it to the Governor of New York State, Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the entire delegation for taking the time to join us once again. This is our 5th visit. I'm afraid if I come back one more time, they're going to charge me taxes in Puerto Rico. But it's our pleasure to be back. We understand the time of trouble that the island is facing. And in times of trouble, it's very simple. Friends show up, and friends help friends. And in this case, we're more than friends. We are literally brothers and sisters. We're very proud in New York to have the largest Puerto Rican population off the island. And the devastation that the island felt was felt in New York. I don't know that people can appreciate on the island how the pain communicated to New Yorkers. Not just Puerto Rican New Yorkers, but all New Yorkers. Because if you're a New Yorker, you grow up with the Puerto Rican community. I'm a born and bred New Yorker. So the pain felt and the shock felt on the island was also felt in the state of New York. And in New York, what we do is we act. We rise to the challenge. And as soon as the emergency hit, as soon as the hurricane hit, as you heard from Rob Mejica, we came. We were on the first plane, and we were doing everything we can. And we're proud of what we did in that emergency effort. Over 1,000 personnel from the state of New York came to the island. That National Guard, we sent police, the Power Authority came down the day after the hurricane. I think the Power Authority is still here. I haven't seen them back in New York anyway. I came down on one trip. We sent literally the utility companies from New York State, Con Edison and trucks from across the state. I saw more Con Edison trucks in Puerto Rico than I saw in Manhattan. So the presence was very large and right across the board, from the healthcare need, from the healthcare community. Greater New York Hospital Association sent staff and medical supplies, $11.99 sent personnel. The nurses sent personnel. Everybody did whatever they could. And not just in terms of personnel, but then New Yorkers all across the state donated a tremendous amount of goods. In total, over 4,000 pallets of goods were donated, as well as millions of dollars. And some of the money came from foundations. Some of the goods came from large corporations, et cetera. But the sight in the Bronx and some of our urban areas where people would come out with 1 or 2 cans of food, and they would say, "This is all I have, but I wanted to share it." It was that type of personal connection that people just wanted to do whatever they could do. And it was a beautiful moment for New York, because people like to say, well, New Yorkers are tough. Yes, New Yorkers can be tough, but New Yorkers have a heart of gold. And nobody comes together and nobody rises to a challenge like New Yorkers. And when someone is in trouble, no one gives more than the people of New York. And we saw that in a way I've never seen before in the case of Puerto Rico and what you went through. We also said at that time the emergency is step one. But there's then going to be a rebuilding effort that goes on. And that's going to be a long road. And that's going to be a road that continues after the cameras leave and after the newscasters leave and when you're not reading it in the newspaper anymore. When the news media moves on. That in many ways is when the real work begins. And we said we would walk that road with you, and it was going to be a long road. And that's what today is about. It's about partnering in the long-term rebuilding with the goal of not just building back, but to build back better than before. A lot of the places damaged, a lot of the systems damaged, needed to be improved anyway. And how do you take this opportunity not to just replace, but to improve as you are rebuilding? And we have a very creative approach. The state has never done anything like this before, where we have partnered for assistance in long-term reconstruction. And the partnership is not-for-profits that are on the ground doing great work, like UNICEF, like All Hearts and Hands, like 9/11. They're partners on the ground. We then brought in skilled construction trades from the New York City building trades, who also partnered, and then college students from New York who go to state school, CUNY, SUNY and CUNY, State University, City University of New York, over 500 who wanted to help and they wanted a way to help, and they've given their time during the summer and coming down in 2-week shifts to provide personnel power. And we came down to work with them and to tell them we appreciate them and to do a little work to assist them in the meantime. So we will be here for the long term. This is a connection of family, and this is a connection of love, and that never ends, and that connection never stops. And we will be there until Puerto Rico is back up 100%. We have 11,000 Puerto Ricans in New York State now who were displaced. My hope and my goal is that every person who was displaced, when and if they want to go home, there is a home to go back to, and that the island is better for the experience and stronger for the future. I also want to make a comment on the federal government, if I might. When we were here, right after the storm, I said, and I was highly critical of the federal government's response and FEMA's response. I said I had worked in the federal government. I was Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. I did a lot of work with Puerto Rico at that time. Puerto Rico is one of the largest percentages of public housing in the United States. And I had visited the island many times. I had also done all the emergency work during my 8 years in the federal government. So I saw what the federal government can do. I saw what FEMA can do. And what FEMA was doing here on the island was not the federal government's best effort. They were not prepared. They hadn't done the work before the event that they should have done. They were very slow in their response, and they were basically ineffective and anemic. I said, even in the weeks after the hurricane, that the federal response was lacking and that the federal government should be ashamed of itself. The federal government has now done a report on FEMA's response to the Puerto Rico hurricanes. And the federal report on the FEMA response says exactly what we were saying. The federal report is highly critical of FEMA's response. It says FEMA was shorthanded, they were unprepared, they didn't have the resources, and it documents the failed effort. Okay, it's no shock, especially to the people of Puerto Rico, because they lived it. But now that the federal government has admitted that their response compounded the problem, doesn't the federal government owe it to Puerto Rico to finally do the right thing? I think President Trump should apologize to the people of Puerto Rico for the lack of FEMA's response and the lack of preparedness and the pain and the suffering that they've gone through. It was Mother Nature with Hurricane Maria, and that we leave to Mother Nature. But it was Father Trump who compounded the problem by not having an appropriate federal response. Now, they should start with an apology, and then they should follow it up with action. Puerto Rico did a plan for reconstruction that called for $94 billion from the federal government. So far, our information is only $5 billion has been given to Puerto Rico after the plan called for $94 billion, and the $5 billion is a loan. Now that you have admitted that you were part of the problem, federal government, why don't you at least step up and give Puerto Rico the aid it needs to rebuild. Give them the $94 billion and give it to them now. In terms of federal mistakes and federal debacles, Tish James, the New York City public advocate, reminded us this morning of Hurricane Katrina, which was in New Orleans, which was a terrible, terrible debacle of the federal government responding to a terrible storm. Hurricane Katrina, 1,800 people lost their lives. And there's a serious question how many people needed to lose their lives, how many people died just because of the storm versus the lack of response by the federal government. But it's a terrible stain on the federal government, the way they responded to Hurricane Katrina, 1,800 people. The new estimate is 4,500 people died in Puerto Rico. 4,500 compared to 1,800 in Katrina. That puts it in perspective. That's why an apology should be forthcoming, and that's why the federal government should now acknowledge its error, acknowledge its responsibility, and step up to the plate and do the right thing. I hope the Puerto Rican community in the United States make sure that they remind every congressperson, every U.S. senator, every elected official of how terrible the federal government was to Puerto Rico. The people of Puerto Rico were treated as second-class American citizens. We have a federal government that is very good at dividing people. That's what they do. That is their approach. What they did is they divided Puerto Ricans from Americans. And what they missed was Puerto Ricans are American citizens, and there are no second-class American citizens. We will continue to push the federal government, but rest assured, your brothers and sisters in New York are with you 100% of the way, and we are going to continue to walk this road to recovery with you until it's fully done. Thank you.
Governor, now we'll go to George Gresham, president of 1199 SEIU.
Thank you. I'm honored, excuse me, I'm honored to be here today with our governor, who has led the way in the nation in making sure that the people of Puerto Rico get the support that they deserve, not only from New York State, but what they should have received from our federal government as well. In 1199, we have 450,000 members. Many of them are from Puerto Rico, both in the state of New York as well as the state of Florida. And when I talk to them, when I hear the stories that they talk about their families, as a matter of fact, my own executive assistant, Edith Ruman, is her family, and when she told me about all the things that they were going through, how they didn't have power for weeks and weeks and weeks, and you ask yourself, how can this happen in this country, and how can it happen again after the experience that we had in Katrina? You would have thought that we would have learned better. And I say that we would have learned better if this had been a different community other than Puerto Rico, or quite honestly, island of people of color. And it's embarrassing that that happened, but more than that, it's disgusting. And that is why I'm proud to be a part of Governor Cuomo's delegation. From the time he asked us to join up and to be a part of the Empire State Relief and Recovery, it was, to me, was an honor to be asked to be that. I know that representing the members of 1199, not just the ones of Puerto Rican descent, but all of our members know what it's like, because that's what we do for a daily living. We work hard to make sure that we can take care of our families. There are many things that we can't control, like the hurricane itself. That is out of our control. But what we do after the hurricane is totally within our control. And Governor Cuomo has set an example, in my opinion, for not just here in Puerto Rico, not just for New York, but all of the United States by making sure that we don't forget our sisters and brothers here. So whatever little help that I can do today, both as a symbol of support and in many real ways, whatever I can with my own hands, which is, I'm not as good as maybe others in the delegation, like my governor. But I am very happy to be, I'm very happy to be a part of the Andrew Cuomo delegation, and I just wish there were more governors like him, because maybe we wouldn't have to be here as long. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you, George, and thank you to all of your 1199 members who have been impacted and have also volunteered. In the front row, I want to acknowledge Monsignor Kelvin Sullivan of the Catholic Charities of New York. Catholic Charities have actually been very instrumental in helping with the families that have actually left Puerto Rico, are in New York State, in trying to manage the caseload and get them the services they need. And a lot of them are going to be, for the ones that are not coming back, they become part of a New York family, but they're still part of the Puerto Rican family. So thank you, Father, for that. Next, we're going to go to Ken Rasky, President of the Greater New York Hospital Association.
Thank you, Mr. Director. And George, I share all those very fine words about the leadership of our governor. He has been an amazing, steadfast, persistent voice in fairness for Puerto Rico. And Governor, I want you to know you stand out as a national leader, and God bless you for that. And I'm proud to be your partner. And to our brothers and sisters in organized labor, George, 1199, and all the help that you provided, brothers and sisters in NYSNA, the New York State Nurses Association, all were instrumental working together for the relief efforts right at the time of the hurricane aftermath. But that job's not done. The governor has made the exclamation point, it's just not done. We have to continue to be persistent here and come back and back and back until the job is done. And I can tell you on behalf of the hospitals in the Greater New York Hospital Association, which I represent some of the most outstanding healthcare facilities in the world, we are totally dedicated to providing all the help we possibly can to our loved ones and family members in Puerto Rico. So thank you, Governor, again for your leadership, sir.
Thank you, Ken. Next, we go to Assemblywoman Carmen de la Rosa.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm happy to be here today, and I want to start off by thanking Governor Cuomo for his leadership. Not only has the governor made Puerto Rico his priority in the face of neglect from the federal government, but he has also made sure that all of us in New York, elected officials in New York, make sure that we do not forget what's happening in Puerto Rico. I was born in a neighbor island in the Dominican Republic, and I know firsthand what Mother Nature can do to an island, especially in an island in a developing nation like the Dominican Republic. And as someone who was born in the Caribbean, I stand here as a Dominican in support of our Puerto Rican brothers and sisters. Not only because it's the right thing to do, thank you. Not only because it's the right thing to do, but because our governor and his team has shown us the way in New York. I'm proud to say that this is the second time that I visit Puerto Rico, and I am able to lend my seat of support to our brothers and sisters. But this is the fifth time the governor has made this journey here. And even when the media cycle has ended, he continues to support Puerto Rico during our budget process, supporting the people of Puerto Rico. And so I'm proud today to be here to represent not only the Latino community beyond Puerto Ricans, but the Latino community that has made New York their home. We will continue to stand with Puerto Rico until it stands tall and strong. And we will continue to say that the response from the federal government was not adequate for American citizens. And I'm glad that we continue to put that to the media so that they understand that we will not be silent as our people are not taken care of. In addition, I want to give a quick appreciation to the students of SUNY and CUNY. Not only are they our future, but they are symbols of the talent, the compassion, and the commitment of this generation. And I'm proud to say that we are here joining them in this effort. We thank you, and we will continue to support the work that CUNY and SUNY are doing. So I look forward to continuing to visit Puerto Rico, not only to help, but also to make sure that we visit Puerto Rico and that we help the economy of Puerto Rico as it stabilizes and continues to strengthen for the future.
Very good. Thank you, Assemblywoman. And last, we have Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr.
Thank you, Robert Mujica. Yo represento el pueblo más norte de Puerto Rico, el condado de la Zarza, el condado del Bronx. Y gracias a todos ustedes por estar aquí. Y obviamente le queremos dar las gracias a nuestro gobernador. I just want to say that as a Puerto Rican, as the Bronx Borough President, which we know is the most northern pueblo of Puerto Rico, I take this personal. I'm here with my county chairman, Marcos Crespo, and so many others. I see Marlene Cintrón from the Bronx Over Economic Development Corporation. And to all of you, to Tish James, to Carmen de la Rosa, to all of you who are non-Puerto Ricans, on behalf of the Puerto Ricans over there in New York and here on the island, we want to say thank you for standing with us. Thank you for sacrificing time away from your families. Thank you for going out there and doing all that you can to help us rebuild. I would be remiss if I don't say thank you to UNICEF. You've done an amazing job as an organization. Thank you to all of the men and women in labor, the unions, who are not just, you understand one fundamental thing about Puerto Ricans. We don't want any handouts. You don't have to give us fish, just teach us how to fish. And that's what you're doing here. Not only are you helping, but you're teaching Puerto Ricans how to rebuild their homes and rebuild their communities. To you, I want to say thank you. To all of the non-for-profits who go through your challenges every single day, thank you for being here, saying presente. To the Power Authority and all of the utility individuals and workers from Con Edison, the National Guard. Gov, you spoke of the Bronx on September 30th when we did our collection, and that was phase one. People had to come together from all over the city, all over the state, and beyond. And yes, folks came in with one can here, one packet of diapers there, but collectively, that grew into over 300,000 pounds of needs and necessities and clothing and water that we knew our brothers and sisters needed here. And I want to thank you for having the National Guard help us there that day. So to the National Guard, we want to say thank you. To the CUNY students and SUNY students, I'm a CUNY twofer, LaGuardia Community College and Lehman College. This is taking nothing away from your educators and your professors. But you are by far today, and those that are already here, and those that will come to Puerto Rico, you will learn the best civic lesson of your lives. Absolutely. More so than you would in any course, given any course, or in any books, or from any professor. You are learning a lesson on how government is inept in the federal government, negligent, disrespectful, and disgraceful. And you're getting a close view on when government, like our governor, Andrew Cuomo, is responsive. You're getting a close-up lesson on basic human decency. This is lives that we're talking about here. These are our families that we're referring to here. And as you go on and you educate yourselves, I know that ultimately, yes, you want a good career, and yes, you want decent salaries, but you also want to do something with a purpose. You want to do something that speaks to the ultimate good. And our governor, you're getting that example. Governor, you've been consistent, you've been compassionate, you've been committed. And this takes us to different levels. I'm excited, I'm honored, I'm humbled by being here with you once again. We're learning from you, and I look forward to not only, as you said earlier, helping those Puerto Ricans that are over there in New York City, that we're helping them get on their feet, they've been displaced, but they want to come back. A lot of them want to come back. The question is, what are they coming back to? What we're doing here and what's been done already and what we're going to do moving forward is rebuilding their homes and their lives, because ultimately, while we have Rasky here with the Hospitals Association, and we have George Gerson with the healthcare workers, you know, it's just not the biological effects and sickness. There's a psychological effect. I was talking to my good friend Dennis Rivera, and people here walking on pins and needles. And Gov, you joked earlier about me, you know, looking strong, and I told you I'm feeling strong. That's because you give us the strength. You give all of us hope. And collectively, we're giving a beacon of hope to all Puerto Ricans to let them know that we're here, that New York stands with Puerto Rico. Thank you.
Thank you, Borough President. And I just want to say one more time, we cannot be more appreciative and thankful for all of the community partners and the volunteers, because without all of you, we wouldn't be able to get any of this done. The governor's been coordinating this effort, but the building trades, the SUNY and CUNY students, UNICEF, Heart 9/11, Nahama, All Hands and Hearts, Catholic Charities, 1199, all of you together is what's making this trip possible. So thank you to everyone. You all deserve a big round of applause. So we are going to hit the road and travel around the island. But before that, we'll take a few questions.
From the press.
Big news going on in New York today regarding the Daily News. And I know you issued a statement earlier saying that you could offer some kind of support. Some had interpreted that as perhaps financial support. I was wondering if you could just clarify exactly what the state can offer in terms of trying to acquire or negotiate something.
Yes, the question is referring to the Daily News, which is an institution in New York State. It's a great newspaper nationwide. They had a large number of layoffs that basically decimated the institution. I think it's as many as about 100. I don't know what the final count is. But I was shocked that the layoffs happened. I was shocked that the layoffs happened without even any notice. Normally, if a corporation has to do something like this, they contact the state and they say, this is the situation we have. I assume it was a financial problem. And I contacted the Tron Corporation, which is the corporation that owns the Daily News, and I said, look, if it's about finances, the state would like the opportunity to try to be helpful. These are important jobs. The Daily News is a very important institution, not just for New York, not just a big business in New York, but it's also vital to the press corps, and it's a national publication. We've had newspapers that have gotten into trouble before in New York. We had the New York Post, for those old New Yorkers will remember, had financial trouble when my father was governor. New York Post, let's just say, is actively partisan and was against the politics that my father represented. I think that was a fair statement. But nonetheless, he stepped up and he said the state will help the New York Post because it's vital to have a free press, and you want to have a free press with a dialogue. And it was an important business, and there were jobs and there were families involved. The Daily News is the same situation. And if there's a way for the state to be helpful financially, we will be, because we want to keep that institution strong. It's a New York institution, and we want to keep those jobs in New York. So I don't know why they did it. I think the way they did it, without even talking to the state and asking for assistance, was just plain wrong. As I said when I contacted them, if there's a way that the state can be helpful financially, because we want to see that institution do well, we want to see those jobs remain, and anything we can do, we will do. We can look, if it's about a lot of times, Zach, a company will say we have a financial problem, and if we don't get some help or a loan or financial relief, we're going to do X. We're going to leave, we're going to close, we're going to lay off a number of workers. And the state has an economic interest. You know, those 100 jobs, those were 100 New Yorkers who were working, who were then paying taxes, who were then buying food in the local grocery store. So every time we lose a job, it costs the state, number one, not to mention the human cost, and not to mention the loss of the prestige and the capacity of the Daily News. So yes, if they had a financial issue, the state would want to assist in that financial issue as an economic interest and in the public interest.
Any other questions?
Yes. Charito Fraticelli from Telemundo, Puerto Rico. Going back to the report, do you expect that after this admission, we can see an increase in the efforts, a positive move, that Father Trump will apologize, will really apologize?
Look, this, I was talking about partisan before with the New York Post. I'm a partisan when it comes to this federal government. With this federal government, nothing would surprise me. And with this federal government, their ability to deny reality will never surprise me. Their insensitivity and their disrespect will never surprise me. The situation and the disregard for Puerto Rico is not just Puerto Rico. As Brother George Gresham referred to, they have a disrespect for people with different languages and different religions and different skin colors. We're dealing with it every day in New York. We're dealing with it at the border, where they will literally separate children from mothers as a deterrent to keep people from coming to the country. We see increased racism in the U.S. We saw more white supremacy groups. We see more anti-Semitic attacks now, because once you unleash hate and bigotry, it spreads. It's like a cancer in the body politic. Once you unleash that force, it metastasizes, and it is metastasizing. I believe with this government, you get what you demand. I think the people of Puerto Rico and the people of New York should demand that the president apologize. I think they should demand that, given the report, which is their report, which is a damning condemnation of them. You have 4,500 deaths. The question is, how many people did not need to die if there was an appropriate response? And I think an apology is just the first step. I think now certainly the federal government should step up and do what they should have done on day 2, which is a full-throated federal response and a full-throated resource package to give the people of Puerto Rico the help they need. It is their own report that condemns them. It is their own report that condemns them, right? In the private sector, where President Trump is from, if a lawyer had that report, he would sue them and say, this is an admission of your incompetence. This is an admission of your negligence. And your negligence caused great damage, if not death. And the people of Puerto Rico, now that you have admitted your incompetence and your negligence, demand justice. And justice comes from the rhetorical and an apology, and now provide the resources to the island that the island desperately needs. It's been too long, and you've done too little, and now it's not a question of politics. Your own report damns your effort. It's not a Democratic report. It's not a Democratic governor. There's no excuse. Your report damned your actions. But they will not do anything unless the people demand they do it.
Yes, my name is Mari Carmen Rivera from El Vocero. I would like to know if you could please tell us exactly what you'll be doing during your visit. We're not clear as to what exactly will be your efforts while you're here. If you could give us some details of
We
what
have
you'll
had,
be doing.
yes, on what we call the rebuilding effort, we have had partnerships with not-for-profit groups, with unions that represent organized labor, and 500 college students who are coming down and actually working on construction projects, home reconstruction, repairing roofs, cleaning houses that were flooded. We're working on in 6 project areas across the island. The students have been deployed and will be deployed through the summer. The not-for-profit groups that we're working with, our partners, have hundreds of people who have come in from all around the world, literally, to help the island rebuild homes. We'll be spending 2 days. We'll be visiting all the sites, and we'll be helping in the actual construction activities to the extent one is physically and mentally capable of participating. Caveat.
This is done with resources from the city and the state of New York?
All the personnel are either volunteers or they're college students who are getting college credit and a stipend from the state university system.
One more question. Governor, can you just talk about some pardons you did of immigrants who were facing deportation? What were the crimes specifically? Were they low-level offenses?
None of them were violent offenses, but just to take a step back and furthering what I said before, people of Puerto Rico think it was just they were disrespected by this administration. This administration is on a crusade against people who they do not consider original Americans, which is specious and hypocritical at best, because unless you're a member of a Native American tribe, then you're really an immigrant to the United States, right? But what they've done at the border is an example of it, what they've done in Puerto Rico, and they are on a jihad to deport as many people as they can who they believe are not in the United States legally. One of the rationales they use is people who committed crimes in the past. Even if they have no criminal activity, even if they're now leading productive lives, they deport people based on past crimes. We're doing everything we can to frustrate their efforts. One of the things we can do is pardon people for past crimes so their records are expunged. Pardoning means you pardon the crime committed, so they no longer have a criminal record. And that criminal record then can't be used for deportation. And we did 7, Zach. These were all people who committed nonviolent crimes, had not had any criminal activity in the past 10 years, and were leading productive lives. I can get you the actual facts on the 7. Okay, we'll go to work now. Thank you.